You're standing on the sidelines, helmet sitting on the bench, watching your team fight for a season-defining win. A win that could put you on the path to a championship. You're not the star. You're not that guy. That guy's out there. He's the one out there leading the charge, running the plays, earning the big bucks, but in a single moment, everything changes. The crowd goes silent, the play comes to a halt, and suddenly the coach is in your face. Grab your helmet. You're going in. No time to prepare, no time to think. Just one question. Will you rise to the occasion? I'm Del Curry, and welcome back to Cleats Off the Couch, where today we're diving into stories of unexpected setbacks. We'll talk about different setbacks happening to different teams across the NFL, the ripple effects of those. Let's get to it. We're only a few weeks in the season, 1 month in at the point of recording this, so we've seen September. We've seen the opening weeks of football. And through these weeks, we have seen numerous players go down. Numerous players. And these aren't just random guys. They're not just practice player guys. Of course, there's been some injuries that are like that. But we've seen big ones. We see big question marks that are setting teams back. Christian McCaffrey, Tua. Those are two big ones right off the bat that we've seen. But these are players who make you believe that your team has a shot at playoffs, a shot as a fan or as a fantasy team manager. But in one play, all of that has changed or can change. And the ripple effect is huge. Teams have to scramble. New players are forced into different positions and into the spotlight, and fans are left wondering if their season just took a nosedive. But here's the thing. It's not just about football. This is life too. These are things that happen in life. Setbacks are things we all face, and we can connect with what we see happen in the game and learn from those in how we approach what happens in life, in our lives, in your life and mine. We often get hit with these setbacks we didn't see coming, and it's in those moments that we find out what we're made of. And many people, if you're into football, you know of the story of Nick Foles by now with the Philadelphia Eagles. Similar position, star quarterback Carson Wentz, lighting up the league, leading a great season. The Eagles cruising, everyone thinking Super Bowl, but in a moment, injury, awkward hit, and just like that, Wentz is out. And honestly, never the same after that. But the city in that moment went from feeling unstoppable to holding its breath. And who was standing on the sideline? That backup quarterback who hadn't been expected to play a major role. And so in this, you have these two. You have that celebrated story of what Nick Foles was able to do and what he was able to do and lead the Philadelphia Eagles through to a crazy, crazy Super Bowl between, the stats that were made between Nick Foles on the Eagles side and Tom Brady on the Patriots side. But you also had Carson Wentz. And how was he going to face the setbacks of having that knee blown out? I think of a similar one with RG3. How were they going to attack? How were they going to bounce back and face the setback that was put in front of them that they were facing? It's in moments like these that we find out truly what we're made of. And whether you're the one who just got your hopes and dreams shattered, or you're the one who's thrust into this situation, this opportunity that you hadn't planned for, what do you do next? And so this year, 1 month in, there are these ripple effects across the league due to certain injuries or other forms of setbacks. And I couldn't just decide on a few teams or players to talk about. So we're going to do kind of a 2-minute drill across the league. Each team, I'm going to try to talk about what I see based on September as some of the biggest setbacks for each team. For us to watch, are they going to overcome? How are they approaching them? And because I'm a Steelers fan, we're going to start with the AFC North, South, East, West, or Northeast, Southwest. I don't remember how I wrote it down, but we're going to go around the compass and 2-minute drill. You ready for this? Different than I've done it before, but hey, we're going to have some fun with this. Let me get my phone, make sure I've got the timer pulled up. This is also like a late night recording because, listen, when you're a dad and you're doing podcast episodes on the side, you take the time you got. So Here we go. We're going to just put it on the stopwatch, and starting with the AFC North, we're going to start with the Baltimore Ravens. All right, 2 minutes. Here we go. The Baltimore Ravens, anyone can see that O-line has had a couple of issues here starting through September. It was an interesting way to see them start the year, starting off I believe they were 1-3 when they started off, or 1-2. And the fact that different questionable and doubtful tags keep popping up on them hasn't been encouraging. But the positive for the Ravens is Magic Man Lamar Jackson and Bruiser, although I will say less seeing the Bruiser side and more seeing the speed side of Derrick Henry so far. With them in the backfield, it won't hurt them as much as it would 50+% other teams. And that's why I don't think that the offensive line is the biggest setback that the Ravens are facing right now. In August, 6 players were placed on IR. 5 were season ending. 3 were corners, 2 were linebackers. And so through September, the Ravens' pass defense has been one of the worst in the league. The 16 sacks through September is probably their biggest bright spot on defense. The run defense was seemingly great. They played teams, though, my argument, with the Raiders, the Cowboys, the Chiefs. And when you look at the numbers, they mainly prioritize the passing game. So the Ravens defense really didn't have a lot of experience or a lot of stats to show how they actually did against the run game. But the Bills showed us a little bit more truth to the run defense that Baltimore has. And I want to see a little bit more here through October. But that pass defense, man. And then there's Justin Tucker having issues too. But the bigger thing to me is this. It seems like more and more over the last 2 to 3 years, we've seen questionable decisions from Coach Harbaugh. Going for it seems to make more sense right now because of different struggles with the kicking situation, although that seems to have passed now. But his offensive decision-making sometimes seems to be affecting the outcome of different games, and it's concerning, but something that I don't think takes the cake if the defense doesn't improve. But like normal, they've shown in numerous games that they're still top candidate of the North. Oh, I think 2 minutes there. All right, on to the Bengals. We're going to keep going here. Cincinnati Bengals. I got my notes. Trent Brown out for the season with a torn patellar tendon. And that news definitely hurt when that happened. Cincinnati fans to close out September. And after a rough 1-3 start with a shaky defense and now a big hit to the questionable offensive line, one's left to wonder, how will Joe Burrow be able to give his offense hope when the defense won't hold and the line can't help? The high hopes of many this preseason are quickly being met with a reality check. One of the things that I myself, and I might be biased as a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, but I was hesitant at how big on the Bengals people were getting just because Joe Burrow was healthy. But things are looking to be set to cash a mediocre season for the Bengals, one that makes me wonder what the future of Zach Taylor might look like beyond 2025. All of that, though, would be inconsequential with the recent increase in Jamar Chase's production. T. Higgins to 1-3 doesn't mean they're out of it by any means, but we'll see where things continue to go. Is it Hendrickson on defense, and will the defense improve? Will the whole unit come together and improve? How will the use of running backs in the backfield, combining Zach Moss with the rookie Chase Brown and pieces like that, come into play? Will they actually be able to bring themselves to a competitive place when it comes to the AFC North? I think so. I think of any of the teams that started off 0-3 this year to actually still have a run for an opportunity at the playoffs, it'd be the Bengals. But their biggest setback right now is that 0-3 start. I think the questionable offensive line. Defense has been very, very poor, and so they've got to get some of these pieces together. Just I would say the continuity of the offense, but the continuity of the team in general is their biggest setback right now. They have got to pull together. Now on to the Cleveland Browns. 2 minutes and we go. The Cleveland Browns. Oh man, what a start. What a start to the year. Listen, running backs, offensive line, tight end, injuries have seemed to mar this team to start the year. And even bigger, though, we've seen ample opportunity to start the season strong taken away by the atrocious play of Deshaun Watson. Talk about $1 million problem, right? Deshaun Watson has statistically been the worst starting quarterback in the league. The offense is somewhere around 30th, 31st in total yards. Watson is averaging something like under 5 yards per attempt, a 1-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, over 5 sacks per game, a 32-ish% success rate, 1 fumble per game. The list goes on. And these stats are mostly all last in rank among 3 or more game starters in the league. That's ridiculous. The defense, they continue to show their potential of being a formidable group, but with lingering foot injuries to 2023 Defensive Player of the Year Myles Garrett, along with middle-of-the-pack play, both in run and pass defense, just defense in general, we're left wondering which team in Ohio has the bigger potential to fall under season expectations. And so Cleveland, it's going to be curious to see what happens when Chubb comes back, but Deshaun Watson has been the biggest problem. He's the biggest setback for them right now. The quarterback play. Will playing Jameis Winston actually lift opportunity for them in Cleveland? Many people think so. I think so. I mean, hey, as a Steelers fan though, keep Deshaun in. But he's the big setback right now. They have a lot of pieces. Get healthy. Get quarterback play moving. Lean a little bit more into your run game, and I think Cleveland can turn some things around. But how are they going to face that? How are they going to face that setback? On to the Pittsburgh Steelers to finish out the AFC North. 2 minutes on the clock. Let's go. With arguably the top defense, if not one of the top defenses in the league, being led, of course, by potential Defensive Player of the Year candidate TJ Watt. The Steelers are in a position where they can figure out the offense more than they have to force the offense to perform, or so I thought. Until the last game of September, and we'll see where things go into October. And that is something that it seemed like Justin Fields was making use of. But heading into Indianapolis, Indianapolis can't take them lightly, obviously, but I call it the Tomlin experience, because it seems like coming to games like that it should be ones that the Steelers can set up against and have a good start to, and they find themselves in the hole. It happens consistently. Anyway, that's a different rant for a different time. But efficiency is what's key in Pittsburgh. The big issues at this point in the season: the red zone efficiency, offensive line health, and the running efficiency. The whole supposed identity of Pittsburgh this year. But the Wizard of Oz will only be able to get them so far, especially if any injuries happen on defense, which already have with players like Alex Highsmith, and I think that will have bigger effects than people think. But losing other players like Fatanu, Seumalo at offensive line spots for different games, possible multiple games, that could take an already struggling red zone squad and make it worse, like forcing Justin Fields or Russell Wilson, if he ever plays, to hold the ball or make riskier reads and throws, especially downfield. And if it isn't obvious, offensive line health has effects on the run game. And so at this point, it has to be wondered, will depth at wide receiver also hinder them soon? I would say overall the setback in Pittsburgh, though, is in the red zone. If they create more touchdowns inside the 20, then they'll set themselves up for the needed 6-3 or greater start, because once they get to the backstretch of the season, I argue they have the hardest 8-game stretch in the league. Early victories cannot be taken lightly. I could say so much more. But 2-minute drill, We got to get in what we can. That's the AFC North. Let me know what your thoughts are. What are the biggest setbacks? What do you think are the biggest setbacks when it comes to the AFC North right now? Steelers, Browns, Bengals, Ravens. Continue the conversation. If you haven't already, be sure to like, subscribe, share, whether you're watching, listening, wherever you are. Leave a 5-star review. It helps out big time. And with that being said, we're going to move to the NFC North and see what's going on over there. All right, as we move to the NFC North, this has been a surprise to me. For many, I don't think anybody expected Minnesota to start out the way they did this year, and a lot of people had way more hope for how Chicago was going to start out this year. Green Bay seems to be right around what they thought. The Lions maybe a little bit underwhelming to what they should be, but still doing pretty much along the lines of what was expected. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. We're going to start in 2-minute drill, starting here with the Chicago Bears. On the clock, go. Listen, I do want to say this. I will admit I was wrong about one thing. Caleb Williams is not Jamarcus Russell. I know I was saying that over the summer. They was giving me Jamarcus Russell vibes. He's not Jamarcus Russell. He might be worse. I'm just kidding. But the first month of Rocky play is definitely a concern for Chicago fans. Coming out with the expectations that are had for a first overall pick, especially with how he has been presenting himself and even with how he looked at times. Should it be worried? Should people be as worried as they are? I don't know that they should. Rookies have, especially recently, unfairly been thrown into veteran expectations. I really do believe that the transition from college to the NFL is very real and very different. And seeing Justin Fields handled well in Pittsburgh, it leads me more to a different thought. Is it Caleb Williams or is it Eberflus? Chicago fans, which one is it? The defense continues to play well. The offense struggles to make things happen, even with opportunity. And this could be because of the struggles of a rookie quarterback adjusting to the NFL, or could it be deeper? Because when we see similarities between him and the previous quarterbacks, the thing that's in common is the coach. Now, my gut tells me Eberflus is the setback in Chicago, the current setback. But Caleb Williams' inability to take advantage of more than a flash here and there when opportunities appear, that's pretty concerning too. It really is. So Eberflus, that was the question. Was it the coach or was it Trubisky? Right back then, Nagy. And the same with Justin Fields. Was it Fields or was it the coaching? I'm beginning to think Eberflus is the setback that the Chicago Bears need to face and need to figure out what they're going to do. We're moving on to Detroit. Another 2 minutes on the clock. Listen, this one's probably the most different from what I've talked about so far. The Detroit Lions, what is their biggest setback right now that they need to figure out, that they need to bounce back from? I think it's the expectations. The expectations of who they are supposed to be is Super Bowl or bust, right? Arguably best record in the league. And their defense has not shown me that this first month at all. Even Jared Goff hadn't really been showing much of that in September. And I've never felt bigger expectations out of a team from people than arguably the Buffalo Bills, with the roster and growth that the Lions have shown, and the kind of expectation where great isn't great enough. And what are the pieces, though, that seem to be holding them back from the expectations right now? The team with the best offensive line in football, a top 5 rush defense right now in football. Some might say it's the middle of the pack pass defense, but for me, I think it's big contract Jared Goff. And he has been anything but big money so far in September. And as we know, a quarterback can be key to fulfilling or killing a whole team's expectations. And now, here's an important thing. Looking at stats, though, that's the biggest setback I think they have right now. I do think there's some questions in the pass defense as well. But Goff, since 2020, stats from September to October have improved every other year. 2020, 2022, it's 2024. So play improved every other year. And so Lions fans, there's some hope for his consistency, for how he's going to play. Big contract hopefully doesn't hold him back. Like a lot of quarterbacks, after they sign the big contract, then they don't play like that. I believe October will give us some good looks to face that setback. The North in both divisions. The North in both conferences. It is tough, is rough and tough, blue collar, best divisions in football. I said it. I stand by it. All right. Let's move on to the Green Bay Packers. Continuing this 2-minute drill. Green Bay Packers starting that clock. It's moving defensively. Pressure of any kind on the offense is usually beneficial. Add in forced turnovers, That's even better. And these are places Green Bay has seemed to improve so far this season compared to last. The thought to be set back in Jordan Love injury showed very quickly not to be a problem, though, when Malik Willis came in and boom, easy schedule of the Colts and Titans, turned in back-to-back wins. Awesome. But that also stands to say we haven't really viewed what the Packers are actually capable of, good or bad. Think about that. The game against the Eagles showed us there are still some questions in the pass defense. We also have yet to see what strides this offense can grow with the wide receiver core they have. I keep Wednesday nights TikTok. I do TikTok lives at Delcree if you want to join in on those. Follow at Cleats Off the Couch on TikTok as well as at Delcree. Join in for those lives. Hope to go live on Cleats Off the Couch once that gets big enough. We got to build that up first. But Wednesday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern time, talking fantasy football and week predictions and different stuff like that. But I keep calling Jaden Reed the Debo of the North. I really feel like his use in that offense is going to be similar to that and continue to grow in how Jordan Love trusts him and Matt LaFleur looks to build upon him. And so I think that's a positive. And so for me, the biggest thing moving forward is the schedule. Teams like the Rams, Cardinals, Texans, Lions, Bears, Seahawks, Saints, Miami, Jaguars. The Packers have a chance to steal the North if Goff doesn't improve in Detroit. But they also have a chance to miss the playoffs if their pass coverage, especially middle field play, doesn't get more crisp. And so the likes of Stafford, Murray, Stroud, and others won't make it easy if teams are going to neutralize some of the pass rush. That's going to be the biggest thing for Green Bay to face. That's their setback of September. Ooh, I like that. Why haven't I been saying that? The setbacks of September. I like that. All right, we're going to keep going with that. And let's finish out the NFC North, though. And 2 minutes on the clock to talk about the Minnesota Vikings. Like I said at the beginning of this section of the NFC North, unexpected. Minnesota Vikings, completely unexpected. Obviously, we knew that they had pieces in place. Obviously, I should have never doubted what I've known about Brian Flores and his defensive acumen. But I thought Sam Darnold was not going to be this quarterback. I thought there were going to be some things left to be desired. But this team has been playing like the best team in football. There's a reason that they're undefeated through September. It's a big surprise for myself, for many others, but defensive pressure, highly efficient pass offense that has brought Minnesota to its fast start. But if you would have told me that Sam Darnold would be the one leading this charge and making this happen, I would have called the psych ward, because nobody would have ever. I don't care who you are trying to say that you would have. No, you wouldn't have predicted this. Nobody would have predicted this. It makes sense though for a place like the Jets to misuse him, but that's a different conversation. And what's crazy though about Minnesota is this offense has done this without tight end TJ Hawkinson. He continues to be out with his knee injury. And also their offensive line could look to get even better with a soon-to-be returning Dalton Risner at this time. The NFL is so fun to follow because stories like Darnold and situations like this. And so what do I think the Vikings need to look out for? I think their pass coverage needs to be careful, because if anybody is able to stop the pass rush from doing the amazing things that they're doing with all the sacks that they're forcing and pressures and stuff, that the cornerback play and such could be a weakness to them. But if Sam Darnold keeps doing his thing, Flores keeps doing his genius, I don't want to jump and dance too soon, but this team could be looking for a playoff run representing the North. Bears, Lions, Vikings, Packers, how do you think the NFC North is going to shake out? What do you think are the current setbacks from September that each team is looking to face in the North and overcome? We're going to move to the East. We're going to follow the compass down and around, and we're going to start back in the AFC. A lot to talk about and try and get through here with the AFC East. And so we're just going to hop back into it. We're going to keep moving here. 2 minutes, man. It's all about speed. It's all about hustle. So with the AFC East, let's talk about the Buffalo Bills. There's a setback in Buffalo? Wait, what do you mean? Yeah, we got to see it, especially right at the end of September. Things aren't all we thought they were, or are they? Was it just because of how good of a game that was? Um, this one's different than others I've discussed so far. The Bills through September, they looked like Super Bowl favorites. Recent IR visit though from offensive tackle Tylen Grable and preseason tagged season-ending shoulder injury to offensive tackle Travis Clayton could potentially build to create a few issues for the offense. But that's yet to be fully seen, and not the focus of facing a setback that I have for Buffalo. This offseason, the Bills made interim offensive coordinator Joe Brady the official OC. And anytime there's a change with a star quarterback and offensive coordinator, we're left to wonder what's going to be the future outcome. But in this situation, not every single one is like this. We got to see a practice run of them together midseason through the end last year. And with this unexpected situation change, Josh Allen and Joe, they seem to be facing this setback with a vigor and an exciting splash of new opportunity. What once was to me a team that seemed to miss their 3-year window. I kept saying, has now emerged looking to squat in this house and make the windows theirs for however long that they please. But I question that there at the final game of September. Some of the pieces, they look like they started off hot. That we've seen the Bills do that before. We've seen questionable play calling by Sean McDermott or just decision making by McDermott, and so I'm curious to see how health holds together. Josh Allen has to play MVP football in order for the Bills to be who people want the Bills to be. Is the 3-year window over? I'll leave that as a rhetorical. And from the Bills, we'll move to the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins, probably one of the biggest setbacks for any team this year, is Tua. And probably one of the biggest setbacks for them moving forward in general, not just for how to perform this season, what they're going to accomplish this season, but also what's the future of Miami. They put all of this money and all of this goal, all of this desire, all of the plan into Tua, and man, we don't know where things are headed. Not many quarterbacks will be able to replicate what he has been able to do with that squad, especially at home in Miami. So they're going to are they going to trade someone for somebody? Since the backups are getting injured and not performing, is one of the backups going to light it up in the revamped offense that maximizes quick release and utilizes the speed across the entire offense? I don't know. The defense has been decent, but could use a little improvement. Let's be real, could use a lot of improvement. The run defense has been middle of the road. Pass defense has been worse. Early injuries made them thin at places like corner and linebacker, and they have to improve in order to see any chance of making the playoffs in the AFC. While down your star quarterback, let alone an opportunity at the AFC East with the Bills and even the Jets. But no conversation right now is as important as what's next for the quarterback position this season for the Dolphins. This is the biggest setback probably for any single team in the NFL through September. This is the biggest setback of September, in my opinion. How Miami bounces back from that will be what matters the most to see what they're going to do as an organization, let alone what they're going to accomplish here the remainder of the 2024 season. The Patriots, oh, I better start the clock. The Patriots are an interesting one. Many, including myself, thought coming into the season the Patriots would be fighting for worst in the league, worst record in 2024, and the best draft spot because of that to follow. But just like when Bill was coaching, the defense alone has shown it's still possible. The offense, on the other hand, yeah, it's what we thought. Do they have their quarterback of the future? Is this the year to find out, or do you continue to let Jacoby Brissett do what he can? Either way, the pass game with the quarterback situation, offensive line play, wide receiver core, they've all been less than desired. And the offensive line piece, I think, is one of the biggest of those things, and probably the biggest factor for why we're not seeing Drake May play, especially at tackle, running back depth behind Ramondre Stevenson, although it has been a question of he's been fumbling been fumbling a lot. So is Antonio Gibson going to get some opportunity? Wide receiver core, they all need help. And they may show moments of stability, but the consistency has been a big question because they haven't been consistent. There you go. So the biggest thing for me in New England right now is the new culture. It's the new culture. Like, we can point out all these individual pieces, but what's being built as the continuity, as the glue that holds this all together to be built upon, that's really the biggest setback of September that we're trying to see what is happening with. How do you go from decades of the Patriot way to a new regime? What, as the new coaching staff, are you doing to create as a culture for the franchise? What are you going to create? That's what I'm curious to see with Coach Mayo. That's what will set things up for movement forward or falling back. And the first month gave us a glance at some positives for them in this way. And if they continue to control games with the run game behind the running backs and improve their pass defense along the top 10 run defense that they have, they can show signs of a healthy and growing new culture in Foxborough. Winning may not be in the cards, but showing the future is bright or bleak is on top of the deck. I know that was outside of the 2-minute drill, okay? But that was my little overtime tag for New England. But let's finish out the East, AFC East, finishing out with the Jets. The New York Jets, after last season, they were the New York Not Yets, but now that we've seen a youthful Aaron Rodgers, Thursday Night Football, beautiful. It'd be crazy to expect anything less than playoffs. And after the whole Hassan Reddick situation, which is not my September setback to be worried about, I thought we would see a defense in need of help. And while they haven't been the best defense in the league, they have been good, ranking in the top half of the league in pass defense, while middle of the road in rush defense. The big concern for me, yes, it has to do with the defense, specifically the linebacker core. Zaire Barnes, I apologize for mispronunciation. IR. Although he is set to return in October. Jermaine Johnson out for the season. CJ Mosley dealing with toe injury. This especially losing Jermaine Johnson is going to potentially hurt them. And on the other side of the ball, MCL sprain and bone bruise to Morgan Moses at right tackle could affect what the offense is able to completely do until he returns in mid-October. It stinks when you get an unexpected injury on one side of the ball, but when you get his with one on both sides, like Moses, when you get this on both sides of the ball with people like Moses and Johnson, that can create some heavy issues. And especially if any hits do get to happen on Rodgers, man. But Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, is that the right name? Production opportunity. I'd like to see more out of Garrett Wilson. Man, there's a lot yet to be desired. I don't think they're going to be the crazy great double-digit win team of the East, but I do think they still have pieces in play to compete to win the East. That is the AFC East. Jets, Bills, Patriots, and why do I always forget one? It's not like I don't know these teams. Dolphins, golly. But what do you guys think? Where do you think? What do you think is the setback of September for the AFC East, maybe as a whole, let alone for an individual team? Let me know. Make sure to comment wherever you're watching or listening to this. Again, share, like, subscribe if you haven't done any of those things. Send it to your granny. Give a 5-star review. Ask her to do the same. It helps massively. Appreciate you guys. And with that, we move to the NFC East, which always shakes itself up to be something interesting. Let's just get started. The Cowboys. The Cowboys, there doesn't seem to be a bigger look of confusion when people look at the performance of the Cowboys defense this year. I've heard it from different announcers and such. People were expecting great new ceilings for a Zimmer-led defense in Dallas, which is interesting to me, though. When Zimmer's defense in Minnesota, his final 3 seasons, or 4 seasons, he was 4th. His defense was 4th in the league, and it dropped to 14th 3 seasons ago, and then the 27th 2 seasons ago, and then last year their defense in Minnesota was 30th in the league. So I don't know what people were expecting, But to me, I didn't think it was anything. I mean, yeah, they have players on Dallas's defense, but to expect there to be something great because Zimmer is now leading the charge, I don't know. I don't know. It seems crazy to me. But the running back room still looks to be a big problem on the offensive side of the ball, with the strength of a decent offensive line being in that guard duo that they have. It leaves me to wonder why more was never done to really lean into the run game this offseason. So that may be a setback for them, but put these two things together in the greatest circus on turf. I like that. I like that. I wanted to coin that. And it'll be no surprise to me come January 2025 why the Cowboys don't make it back to 12 wins, why they might even miss playoffs and say goodbye to, and potentially even say goodbye to the 17th winningest coach of all time. One more win and he'll be tied for 14th with the likes of Pete Carroll, Tom Coughlin, Mike Shanahan. It's happy company, but that's if the current trajectory continues. If this division constantly shows itself as where you have a heavy fight between everybody, or you'll have like two teams that'll really take the cake. So I'm interested to see where things go, especially as we look at the New York Giants. This one's going to be easy in the 2-minute drill, so I've already started the clock. But the New York Giants, to me, from what we've seen through September, their setback, I don't know what stands as the individual September setback. Offensively, they don't look great. They look like they're going to get their star rookie out wide. They're going to get him murdered. The amount that they're going to be trying to chuck him the ball. The run game is obviously completely different with Devin Singletary instead of Saquon Barkley. And so the future of the Giants should run through the hands of Malik Neighbors, but the way the offense is being run in New York, that kid won't be around to find out. Like that's the danger of it. And with little to be excited about other than maybe a half decent run defense, half decent, the Giants seem to just drop back and chuck it to the rookie or to Wan'Dale Robinson. And regardless of who, what, where, when, why, how, any of that. And what's worse is that Daniel Jones throwing a deep ball. That's what's worse. Underthrown every time. Anyway, he's chucking Australian pigskins because those things keep falling down under, So this unit to me looks like the reason to expect a potential coaching vacancy to be refilled in 2025. Just saying. That's my thoughts. The biggest setback right now, everything. How do you identify one thing with them? Anyway, let's move on to the Philadelphia Eagles. Philly fans have been telling me for years that the wide receiver core is the issue, and depth is needed, and that the running back room needed to be used correctly, and that the secondary needed to be filled. And it looked like Philly had done the impossible and filled all these needs in one offseason, which is crazy. Almost seamlessly fulfilling them, not including the impossibility, though, of fulfilling Jason Kelce's spot in one offseason. But now, how do changes look for them? Offensive line still a bit shaky at times, mainly due to losing that future Hall of Famer at center. But Hurts is managing. At least he was. But to face injuries to your top two receivers within 2 to 3 weeks of each other, let's hope this doesn't spell out what the rest of the season will hold. I do think the trade for Jan Dotson was well timed, and but I mean that's an expectation of like maybe we have one go down, we got a guy to fill in. It's not to have both go down, so that has been problematic. But outside of the wide receiver issue, the defense has to come alive. The pass rush needs to reappear. To think that they almost broke the single season team sack record just 2 years ago to now being tied for third lowest number of sacks? Crazy. That's just crazy to me. The pass coverage has been improving, especially as the young secondary begins to grow. Although I do want to keep an eye on Darius Slay Jr., as a few matchups have made me think he may be in the stages of losing his step at 33, maybe. There's no reason to think that this team couldn't win the East and make a push for the top seed in the NFC with how the 49ers and Lions have just as many question marks now. That's the crazy thing about this. So we'll see what happens with the Eagles, but those are a couple of the setbacks from September I see for them. And so we finish out the division looking at the Washington Commanders. And let me hit start on this. My future offensive rookie of the year selection seems to be fulfilling his potential. And I only expect more of it. When Eckler is back healthy and Jamison Crowder is too, and so in a division that looks far different than expectations showed, it's not too far to continue saying that this is my Cinderella NFC team. There's still time for Philly to fix some things and Dallas to get their defense together, but it's exciting to see Washington back in the mix of hopeful potential. It's so fun to actually see Washington have some excitement. It really is. Having a reliable run game is huge to help a rookie quarterback, and when looking at defenses across the current NFL, huge to win. And doing so without turning the ball over, perfect. The part that really limits them, though, is their pass defense. I really do think their pass defense is still weak. They still need to figure some things out there. They haven't been good so far, giving up. At the point I had looked up stats at the end of September, fifth most passing yards and league high 9 passing TDs. I think that changed a little bit through the entire month of September as the Vikings, surprisingly, I think, had given up the most, but Washington was still right up there with them. And they're also not forcing turnovers either. They had 0 interceptions and 1 fumble recovered at the end of the first 3 weeks of September. And so there's a lot to be figured out defensively, but I trust Dan Quinn. I think Dan Quinn will figure it out, and things will start to come together. And you watch Jaden Daniels start to get hot, and I think they got to have health there. If you have that Brian Robinson and Eckler duo, and then you've got Terry McLaurin, and is Jamison Crowder looking to come back? I think I don't know what his injury looks like. I think Washington looks good. Finishing out the East, the NFC East here. What do you think? Philly, Dallas, Washington, New York. What do you guys think? What are the biggest setbacks of September for each of these teams, or for the division, the NFC East as a whole? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Be sure to share with me. If you aren't following on Twitter at CleatsOffTheC, be sure to follow there. Every Thursday, I look to post out. If you're a fantasy football player, manager, fantasy football team manager, be sure to follow out there and check out. I do a surprise 5 every Thursday where I post my predictions for starts and sits that are not your normal choices. So every time I share my top 5 starts, they're specifically players that are not in the top 95% and above owned in leagues and such, and as well as the sits, who are the top guys who I'm actually claiming you should sit. I've had pretty solid success, somewhere in this like 64% success rate in my choices there, and so be sure to follow on Twitter there, as there's different things I comment on different games and all that kind of stuff. I'd love for hear your guys' input. Let's have some conversation on there. Let's have some fun with it. And just like that, we are halfway there, and we're going to keep it moving to try and get this recorded. It is late while I'm recording this, and so AFC South, hit the clock. The Houston Texans, you have to establish the run game. So they did. Hand the ball off to Joe Mixon 30 times and run to a victory. The problem? Mixon's health history and Pierce's injury. And more than just the running backs, the offensive line. This Texans team has the tools to run for the big game this year. I really do think so. But in fact, I think I had them as my preseason AFC pick. I think I had like the Texans versus the Lions or something like that. But the offensive line has to stay healthy so Stroud can do what he needs to in order to see that happen. Nico, Stephon, even Tank, like those guys, they'll do what he needs them to do. But the depth on the offensive line, that's the biggest thing to me. Between the health and the depth, we could be looking at a similar follow-up year like Burrow had in Cincy after a year of performing behind an under-talented or injured offensive line. And let's hope that doesn't happen. We don't want to see injury happen to anybody. I don't pray injury happens even to my rival teams. I want to see them beat at their best. But I really do think if they pull some of the defensively, they're doing a great job. Yeah, that's gonna be the biggest thing for me is the offensive line. How is that going to hold up throughout the season, and what is that going to mean for C.J. Stroud? Let alone what is the running back core? I mean, Mixon, Pierce, I forget who else they even have behind him. That's going to be an issue. So those are my September setbacks for the Texans. And we're going to just jump right in and move into the Indianapolis Colts. The defense is all banged up, not performing well, quick and straight to the point. And on top of that, Anthony Richardson is, as I was afraid of in preseason predictions that I made, inconsistent. We need more from him. One of the other things we saw about that too at the Colts-Steelers game is injury again with the hip. Joe Flacco came in, and of course, I mean that's how statistics run, right? Is you get a veteran in like that, especially one who's played so many times against the Steelers, and I mean Justin Fields almost pulled that out, but we're not here to talk about them. And even the Colts, we'll see how it holds up. But my concern is his use. They need to lean into his ability to run and be a physical quarterback. And unfortunately, like, he's got to stay healthy. And I think that's going to be huge for them. If the defense doesn't do what they need to, it won't matter, especially their putrid run defense. Their rush defense, allowing most yards in the league, obviously randomly showed up against the Steelers. But I do think also the Steelers are not good about playing up. They play down to their opponent, but at this point, Richardson's health has held up. He has the hip piece. How will that affect into the start of October? But his play must improve. He's got to stay healthy. The ticket to the playoffs or the draft board for the Colts right now. He's the ticket. How they move forward in game plan and consistency is what everything rides on as we head into October. So many of these, it would be easy to just say the quarterback. The quarterback is the September setback, right? But I don't want to say that for everyone, and I don't think it's the legitimate piece for everyone, as we'll hear with some other teams we're moving towards. But with the Colts, I do think Anthony Richardson is really a hinge for them. I really do. All right, enough about them. 2 minutes on the clock. Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't like to always talk about quarterbacks like I just said, as I believe they're treated with too high of expectation, with little talk of those around him. But Trevor Lawrence just hasn't been very good this year. And while he hasn't produced much offense, I think we've seen two big reasons at play. The offensive line has not been good, and the offense as a whole has just floundered. The offensive coordinator, Press Taylor, he's my setback that the Jaguars have to face and improve with. Not the quarterback, not the offensive. I think it's Press Taylor. T-Law has held the ball sometimes. The offensive line has done poorly other times. But the use of his offensive personnel in general make me question if Taylor is handling his offensive play calling properly. Will Doug take back play calling duties? Will Doug Peterson take back play calling opportunities moving forward? Is that how they'll face this seeming setback that I think is a September setback for the Jaguars? Will the offensive line begin to improve? Will Trevor Lawrence start to improve? Any of those are the possible responses that they can make. But all offensive concerns for me as the defense has been decent. I say that, but the pass defense actually hasn't been that great. Run defense has been good, but the pass defense has not been that great. Still struggling a bit, but they've had their moments. I don't think this offense has any. I don't think they've had any moments on offense. That's my thing. And so with that in mind, I think my September setback for the Jaguars is not Trevor Lawrence. It's not the offensive line. It's actually the offensive coordinator, Press Taylor. How is offensive play calling and use of personnel going to continue into October? Is Doug going to take it back? What's going to happen? How are they going to face this in Jacksonville? And so then we move on to the Tennessee Titans. The Tennessee Titans, if I'm honest, I don't know what's happening in Tennessee. In preseason, I said I got the vibe that they were like one of those NBA teams who brings in a bunch of aged people, or they bring in a bunch of people in on the roster that aren't the superstars, but they might be star enough to hope they work together, but they haven't. They haven't. Linebackers, defensive line, especially the pass rush, offensive line heavy, quarterback play. There's been a lot of issues with the Titans, and to choose one as the big setback right now is difficult, especially when you're talking about a new coaching staff. So time and patience is probably the biggest setback for me, the biggest thing. Many are already done with Will Levis, but if you watch this team play any football this year, I don't believe you can make many claims about Levis until the offensive line does their job. I think the more we've seen towards the end of September, it does lean me to think, Levis may not be the guy, but the offensive line has got to improve. I mean, as a Steelers guy, like I'm all for Mason Rudolph. Let's see the opportunity. Let's see what he can do for them. But even he is not going to be able to perform well if that offensive line does not improve. Being sacked at the second highest rate in the league, the offensive line has to improve. It's arguably been the worst in the league. Arguably been the worst. And the defense has been pretty porous as well. But at moments in September, the defense and special teams units have helped. The offensive line hasn't. And neither arguably did Will Levis. So there's that. So the AFC South, what do you guys think? The Titans, the Colts, the Texans, the Jaguars, what have been the September setbacks for the AFC South? Do you agree with me, disagree with me? I want to hear about it. And now with the AFC South down, we move to the NFC South. And so surprisingly, the NFC South to me has come alive as a rather, put the Panthers aside, but majoritively, the NFC South seems like a really competitive league, except for the Panthers. And so I think that's fun, because I don't think we've seen that much since Drew Brees was in the league. As a whole competitive division, yeah, we haven't seen that in a while. But we'll start off the NFC South with the Atlanta Falcons. The obvious answer to the setback question, or the obvious answer in today's league for how a team is going to do, is based around the quarterback. And as everyone has no doubt heard by now, that's a big deal in Atlanta with Kirk Cousins and how he's going to bounce back from his Achilles injury in 2023. But that's just a piece of the puzzle in Georgia. Even bigger than seeing how your quarterback will bounce back for a team, how the moves of an organization will set up its team. Kirk, new quarterback to the team, coming off injury, new coaching staff, a lot of other pieces added to the roster to try and set up a successful start to what's next after the setback that was Arthur Smith as head coach. Another piece that will come as more important than the quarterback across Atlanta and others, and notably, potentially, possibly, the biggest setback for the Falcons after 1 month for me, losing Drew Dahlman at center. This will continue to put lasers on first-year OC Zach Robinson as he tries to settle into his first play calling role. But anytime you lose your starting center, I think it really can affect things. And it doesn't remove the opportunity of things. I think that they still have pieces in play, and you can still game plan pieces and work around that to make it work. I mean, it's the NFL. Backups and different people are still high-level football players. And I think we saw improvement with Kirk and with the healing and how comfortable he feels with his Achilles from week 1 against the Steelers to where we are at the end of September. So I think I think that's a big setback is going to be the center, loss of center, how they're going to bounce back from that, but also first year play caller Zach Robinson. How are things going to continue to go? And with that, we move to probably another short one. I apologize to any who are a fan of this team for being probably so brisk with them, but that is the Carolina Panthers. And I don't want to beat a dead horse. The Panthers' biggest setback right now, I think, is actually time. New GM, new coach, new direction of everything always needs time. And unfortunately, that means dealing with mistakes of previous deciders in their positions. As many have joked, Carolina has seemed cursed since after the Super Bowl run with Cam Newton, but there's hope here. The first step, get the quarterback and other vital positions filled with the people you want. And without much trade stock, the Panthers will hope for surprise moments like the Raiders' upset, led by the Red Rifle himself, while a culture is created and the draft is looked forward to. Now, with all that being said, the 8 IR placements, whether season ending or for the typical 4 to 6 week windows, have definitely not been helpful to the Panthers' woes that exist. And I do think that obviously the CJ Stroud, people would be like, oh, their biggest setback from September is CJ Stroud. That to me has been, like I had said, like those decisions of previous people. I think the current setback has just been about trying to set up what is the new, similar to what I talked about with New England. What is the new? What is the culture? What is the foundation that we're building? And I think having a veteran like Andy Dalton to lead at quarterback is helpful when you're looking at progress and production on the field on Sundays. It's definitely helpful to people like Deontay Johnson, but I think the biggest thing is he's helping to carry through current capability as best as he can as an aged veteran, experienced veteran. But what are they setting up for the opportunity of what's next? Because I don't think anybody's considering the Carolina Panthers to be any kind of threat when it comes to playoffs this year. That's my September setbacks for the Panthers. And flying through the NFC South, we got the New Orleans Saints. The New Orleans Saints, to me, is a very, very interesting situation. When I originally had made predictions for the Saints coming into this season, I didn't realize much of what was happening down in New Orleans. And then as I looked more into it, into my later predictions closer to the season, I was just like, man, the defense looks good. And offensively, I wasn't sure. And I was very much I was hesitant to the offense. And then the year started. And even after week 1, I was like, okay, that was against the Panthers. And I was hesitant there. But then we saw it consistently. And I'm like, okay, maybe there's something real about this. But this team is a great example of how one key position, not named the quarterback, can have devastating effects on their success. You might think I'm talking about Alvin Kamara, as he has been on a rip to start the year, but even he won't produce the same due to this injury. How will the Saints look to recover from losing Eric McCoy at center? That is my September setback for the New Orleans Saints. The first week he was on IR, Derek Carr wasn't able to perform like he was the first 2 weeks of the season. And against the Eagles' pass defense, who I talked about earlier, don't give much pass rush, and their pass defense is improving but hasn't been great. If any other injuries start to affect the offensive line, like Cesar Ruiz, in other interior linemen, then it's going to be hard for the Saints offense to push them to compete for the NFC South title this year. I had high hopes for them from what we saw the first 2 weeks, but as we see these interior line injuries, man, if they get the hole plugged come November when McCoy looks to return, this team could look to lead the South as one of the biggest surprises this season. That's their setback, September setback for me. Offensive line, specifically interior linemen, and that starting center loss. So we'll see how they're able to hold up as we head towards the middle of November, I think. Finish this off for the NFC South with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, man, I like Baker Mayfield. I thought the Cleveland Browns did him dirty. I think I've talked about this before, whether in podcast or on TikTok Live or wherever. I like Baker Mayfield. Um, Take the Cleveland Browns current team, put Baker Mayfield in it. That's a Super Bowl capable team, in my opinion. I think it would be a better roster around Baker Mayfield than Tampa Bay is. But the Bucks have only the Titans and the Browns, I think, at this time, with more sacks against them. Excuse me. And are tied with the Bears. Excuse me. Baker cannot endure that long term. They got Tristan Wirfs at left tackle, awesome, but then across the rest of it, it's just not gonna work. Between that and an underwhelming run game, Rachaad White not being who he should be, more going with Bucky, the offense has to get it together for the Bucs to return to a chance at the South Crown this year. But even bigger than this, a team that only after 3 weeks, I think they had like 2 sacks as a defense in 3 games. So if the Bucs keep taking pressure and not creating any, Tampa won't be returning to the playoffs. The positive? Their schedule brings them up against multiple teams who aren't producing much success with defensive pressure either. The Eagles defense, Falcons, 49ers, Panthers, Raiders, which will be helpful. I don't even want to say can be. I think it will be helpful for them to still win games, and for Baker Mayfield with Chris Godwin and Mike Evans specifically to have great games. You watch. But I think those are some of my September setbacks there. Porous offensive line is huge, as well as the inability to create pressure on defense. Those two. I don't know how that was time-wise with that if I stayed within the 2-minute drill because, man, I just went into a coughing fit and I cut most of that out so you guys didn't have to hear that. The NFC South, what do y'all think? Saints, Bucks, Panthers, Falcons. Who do you think has had the biggest setback? What do you think it is? Let me know with the NFC South, and we are moving on to the West. The AFC West. At the beginning of the season, I thought this was one of the ones that was like, okay, we obviously know what's going to happen here. But things have not seemed to be as obvious as I thought. Difficult wins, like tough wins for the Chiefs as compared to the Chiefs are going to be the Chiefs. So that's interesting, but I'm not going to jump right in that. We're going to start off with the Denver Broncos. The Broncos, I've spoken my piece before about what I think and what I'm not sure I'm behind when it comes to Sean Payton. I'm not sure, is he the guy, or was it more Drew Brees? I don't know. There's stuff yet to be seen about that. Bo Nix is a rookie, so that's kind of big to go with, but similar to Carolina, seemingly in a better spot. Time, I think, is the biggest setback and it seems to be a weird thing to be able to state as a setback, but sometimes it's not just about a player injury, or it's not based upon a poor performance by certain positions. It's just, you got a young squad, you've got young staff, you've got young opportunity, and you're trying to build something. You're at the beginning stages of building something, and you just need time. And so, defense, quarterback, I think those are flashes that we're seeing. Bo Nix, level of potential in this defense, like these things are going to carry them. But how far? I haven't had them anywhere above like a 6-win team this year, I don't think. But it doesn't look like it matters if it's Sean Payton or not. Or if it's Bo Nix or not. The Broncos look set to build. The pieces seem to be in order. They just need the rookie quarterback to build, and a few more pieces addressed in the draft and offseason. So injuries haven't really been a big part of this equation, which is huge for any team. let alone one trying to build itself into a competitor. So my notable IR player, which definitely has some effect, I think, is Alex Singleton, a linebacker, who's out for the season from his knee. But overall, players are getting healthy, and other than an offensive tackle season-ending injury to Quinn Bailey back in August, health seems to be good for the team in Denver, and that's huge for a team in the AFC West as well. Longevity, man, longevity. So I think I went over there, but hey, the Broncos, they could surprise here as things start to build. I'm not getting my hopes up, but they could. They could. Hey, the Chiefs, 2 minutes on the clock. Coming into this season, it seemed like the Chiefs had only improved every part of their roster, which was crazy to think about after back-to-back Super Bowls. They had already started out 3-0 and then 4-0, but it was a tough start. And so what do I think is the main concern moving forward? I think it's offensive health. Offensive line, especially the tackles, they need to get healthy and stay there. Depth needs to get healthy. Running backs need to get healthy. Travis Kelce actually performing something would help, but are we going to see that? Not seeing it has actually been nice because I haven't had to turn on football to watch updates about Taylor Swift. So I can just go on Twitter and see what I want about her. I'm just kidding. But I don't see the Chiefs falling behind anytime soon, and they have the potential to start out like 6-0 heading into their bye week. I really do think that. But not if Mahomes is playing survival in the backfield and without a run game to support him. Those are some of the biggest ones for them. And I mean, the defense is playing good football. I mean, stay healthy. He actually has some receivers if they stay healthy, and so I just there's not much more for me to say about the Chiefs. I just think that's their biggest setback right now. So there we go. We're gonna keep moving. Gonna keep moving. Sometimes you score before 2 minutes is up. You know what I mean? But then we move to Las Vegas, and I'm gonna hit the start on this at the beginning of the year. I had listed, I had Washington as my NFC Cinderella team, and we're seeing great things out of them. I had the Raiders as my Cinderella team in the AFC, and I don't know that's gonna happen. I don't know. I love what we saw out of their coach, the latter part of last season, but man, quarterback matters, and Gardner Minshew has not been the Gardner Minshew has not been the answer. But the main conversation, that's been the main conversation out of Las Vegas. But here's my question: the real problem. What I think is the real problem. You just have to run the ball to beat them. And this doesn't need much conversation. The clear setback in Las Vegas is run defense. Their ranking stats in opponent rushing yards per game, per carry, and explosive plays, all 30th or worst in the league. That's concerning, and that is going to lose you football games. I've loved seeing the culture grow under Antonio Pierce, especially through the end of last season. And though we'd see a potential fringe Cinderella team this year, and thought we'd see that, but if run defense doesn't improve, I don't see this team beating the 6-win mark, if I'm honest. And so they need to get that under control big time. I mean, I'd like to see them produce with their own run game as well. Zamir White and is it Madison? Is that who the other guy is? Or Chandler? I forget which team I'm thinking of, Vikings or the Raiders, which backup running back. But like, I'd like to see more production from the run game too there. But that run defense, they got to get it together. That's the September setback for the Raiders. The Chargers starting the clock. Listen here, an exterminator needs to make its way to Los Angeles because the injury bug is rampant in that city. We're talking Los Angeles Chargers, Los Angeles Rams. There are injuries all over the place. And for the Chargers, you've got Bosa, Colson, Slater, Alt, Chark, Herbert, and more who are or have been dealing with injuries. And it doesn't look like it's going to stop anytime soon. That's the big thing for this team to face and overcome. The team as a whole seems to be improved and following faithfully behind new coach Jim Harbaugh. Get this group healthy, and this could be a group to challenge the status quo this year, let alone next. But man, if they're all broken up like this, it's not going to happen. And so the first thing we got to see is their performance against more top of the line teams, and preferably with their stars like Derwin James not suspended. That would be preferable. Um, but health, man, health, and then I'm excited to see what they can do. We know Jim Harbaugh can do it. He's done it before, and yeah, I'd love to see what they can do there, and I'd love to be able to see who is Justin Herbert really. I'd like to see more of that too. But his injury, all those injuries, goodness gracious. Like I said, get the exterminator over there. The injury bug needs killed. With that being said, Chargers, Raiders, Chiefs, Broncos. What is your September setback for each of those teams for the entire West Division? Let me know, and we're going to be moving on here really quick to the NFC West as we're racing to the final. That's the final one. I think we just have the NFC West to go. Let's go. And so we come to the NFC West. Into the NFC West. We're looking at the NFC West, first of all, before I get going, 2-minute drill. The NFC West, to me, I had shared a lot about how I felt like I knew the least about coming in the beginning of the season. And I've since seen a lot of them, and mainly that was probably because I was purposely looking for more, because I'm in the Northeast. I don't really hear much or see much about what's going on other than the 49ers, because they're nationally talked about. And so with that, though, it's been fun to see what's been unraveling in the NFC West. And so 2 minutes on the clock, we got the Arizona Cardinals. And many right now may, here at the end of September, may be thinking that losing Justin Jones with a tricep tear, their defensive tackle, would be the top setback, the September setback, if you will. But I think that just exacerbates the loss of B.J. Ojulari, the linebacker who tore his ACL from the preseason. But that actually just exacerbates the real issue, the Cardinals' defense. And more specifically, previously Super Bowl attending defensive coordinator for the Eagles, head coach Jonathan Gannon, and what he will do with it. The offense in Arizona has shown improvement, but what will the defense accomplish is the question. We haven't seen much accomplishment by the defense through September. And so coming into the season as a bottom 4 defense in stats like rushing yards, allowed rushing touchdowns, sacks, quarterback pressures, points allowed, and first downs allowed. 1 month in, and now without Justin Jones, the Cards are sitting middle of the pack in passing and rushing yards allowed, passing touchdowns allowed, sacks, still bottom of the league in first down percentage, rush touchdowns allowed, forced turnovers. Not much improved over last year. And so these two big injuries and how Coach Gannon is able to handle the defense, I think will be what sets the stage for continued improvement or the hot seat heading into 2025. I don't think Gannon's on a hot seat right now, but I think these things will be telling if they're not able to find success moving into next season. Next season, I think he's going to really be on the hot plate, especially if things don't improve from where we are right now. We move back to where the bugs are infesting. The injury bug is killing the Los Angeles Rams. Right off the bat, the two biggest ones, Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. Offensive line injuries. I will say even more so than that. What's really put the a wrench in the potential of the Rams is the defense's ineptitude, especially the pass defense. If you can't stop anything, how are you supposed to compete? Now, the positive is on the offensive side, you have Matt Stafford, and he's still doing his thing, or at least trying to, even without his top 2 targets, but that will only get you so far. Colby Parkinson hasn't been performing as projected as originally thought. I'm thinking from his fantasy football perspective, their tight end there, and now you're looking to these who else? Tutu Atwell and Demarcus Robinson and is there another one, Tyler something or something like that? I don't. But you've got these other guys that Matt Stafford's trying to work with, but their defense is giving up everything. What are you supposed to do? How are you going to win games if your defense is not doing what it's supposed to do, or even trying to give opportunity to your offense? And so Matt Stafford's capabilities to be able to chuck that ball will only come in so far when your defense is letting the opponent do whatever they want. That's the big September setback for the Rams. And so then moving up to Seattle. Seattle I've talked about before. I've always described them as, quote unquote, annoying. Not in the way of like, I hate the Seattle Seahawks, they're so annoying, but they always, and I'm not talking about their fans or anything like that either, but speaking directly of how they always seem to be in the mix to ruin people's days. And it's super annoying. Even when they don't seem like they're a great team, hey, look, we got 8 wins, 9 wins, 10 wins. And they've always been kind of annoying in that sense. New coaching staff and different changes with things. I was kind of thinking, yeah, you got to expect a little bit of annoyance here and there, but Seahawks, I don't think they're going to be that annoying. Nope. Starting out hot with the 3-0 in the first 3 weeks and such. I think they're going to continue to be annoying. And they have 2 players out for the season, and other than a handful of questionable tags, they're not losing anyone to big issues, but they're facing numerous guys out at one time, different weeks. So the injuries, I think, are the biggest issue. And the youth, like the time to grow together, especially as a defense. They're growing as an entire team, but injury and honestly less risk-taking by Geno, I think, is the concern for Seattle right now. Geno hasn't played bad football, but I think he's kind of taken chances. The defense has done a good job as a young and growing defense to give opportunity for the offense. And I think sometimes Geno is taking he's taken some risks that he doesn't need to. I mean, the health to like Kenneth Walker and stuff like that. I mean, the run game is going to be good, and Seahawks are going to be annoying. There you go. That's my setback for the month of September. I'm just kidding. Those are some of the September setbacks for Seattle. And now we move on and finish the NFC West with the San Francisco 49ers. Oh, the CMC shenanigans, they continue. But it has been more interesting to me. What has been more interesting to me has been what early teams have been able to accomplish against the Niners defense. That's been very interesting to me. They've been sitting middle of the league, and with different injuries abounding on offense, Shanahan has not been as capable at working his offensive magic. Have the 49ers missed their window? Are we seeing a division rival in the Seahawks with a new coaching staff look to overtake the NFC frontrunners? I wouldn't get that far ahead, but the performance of this team as a whole really does concern me for what they'll actually be able to accomplish this season. And more so, even if they are able to make it back to finish out well through this season, what are they going to actually be able to accomplish in the playoffs? Is it going to be another year of the Niners making the playoffs and then not making it? I don't know, but to pinpoint my biggest setback for them this season, 1 month in, the September setback, I don't think it's CMC. Jordan Mason has done a good job filling in the spot. The offensive line needs to get better, but the biggest setback for me is the loss of Javon Hargrave. With an already low pressure and a low attack for that defense, losing Hargrave makes their job even tougher on helping control opponent pass attacks, let alone the run defense. The injury to Greenlaw hurt, but he'll be back in late October. Javon is done for the year. And his presence and control at the front for the run and the pass rush, I think this is going to be the key to watch for the 49ers to face and fix to move forward this season. If they don't, there are plenty of other hungry teams popping up around the NFC. So that's my September setback for the Niners. For the NFC West, What do you guys think? What's your biggest NFC West setback, or for one of those teams, the Niners, the Seahawks, the Rams, why did I forget the fourth one? The Cardinals, golly. Let me know. And if you haven't done it by now, like, subscribe, give us 5 stars. Help us out in this way. If you've liked what I've shared and the thoughts I've had, and you want to see more of it, be sure to like and subscribe and share and any of those things. Make it happen. Appreciate you. So all 32 teams done. Numerous scenarios, some with multiple setbacks, but some of the biggest, like Tua, stretch beyond the football field. They stretch beyond the football team. Will these teams, players, coaches, face these setbacks in front of them? Will they build resolve and build resilience and bounce back, or fall apart? What's going to be their response? What's going to be the outcome? How can we, like these teams, adapt to setbacks and rise to the occasion in life, in fandom, in fantasy football? Wednesday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern time on TikTok, at Delcary. I talk more football and answer as many fantasy football questions as I can. And later this month, I aim to be diving into facing unexpected challenges in life with hopefully another episode, or to release the beginning of November here for Cleats Off the Couch. We're looking at facing unexpected challenges in life, just like on the football field, building resilience along the way, bouncing back in life, just like teams, players, coaches in the league, and even look at what all that means with our fantasy football aspirations too. At that point, we'll be half done. We'll be half done with the fantasy league season. And so if you've enjoyed my 32 team analysis of setbacks, the September setbacks, do me a favor, like, subscribe, share the podcast with a friend, leave a 5-star review wherever you listen, and let's keep the conversation going. At Cleats Off the Sea on X. I almost said Twitter, but X, Twitter, whatever. I'd love to interact with you there, as well as share with you every Thursday Surprise 5 starts and sits for all positions within fantasy football. And so until next time, let's keep taking football conversations from the couch into life, and in the process, get your cleats off the couch.